Imagine a city where the hills you walk past are actually 1500-year-old royal tombs, where the oldest surviving astronomical observatory in East Asia stands in the middle of a public park, and where ancient palaces light up next to streets full of trendy Hanok cafes. That city exists, and it's only about 2 hours from Seoul. Today, unlike my usual videos, I'm taking you outside Seoul to Gyeongju, the city that served as the capital of the Silla Kingdom for nearly 1,000 years. And because one kingdom ruled from here for so long, Gyeongju ended up with a landscape you genuinely cannot see anywhere else in Korea. By the end of this video, you'll know how to get here, what to see, what to skip, and the hidden stories that make every stone in this city worth a second look. Let's get into it! Gyeongju sits in the southeast of Korea, just above Busan, and it's about 300 kilometers from Seoul. From Seoul, you really have three options: bullet train, intercity bus, or drive. I first took the bullet train KTX and went back by intercity bus, and honestly, both are good options depending on your budget and schedule. The KTX gets you here in about 2 hours at around 50,000 Korean won, while the bus takes around 3.5 hours and usually costs around 35,000 won. If you want my full bullet train booking walkthrough, please check my other video. Now, if this is your first time riding the KTX in Korea, there are two things that confuse almost every visitor. Let me save you the panic. Number 1. You usually won't see your platform number on the board until about 15 to 20 minutes before boarding. And don't worry, that's normal. So if you're the kind of careful traveler who shows up 30 minutes early, just use that time to go to the restroom, grab a coffee, buy a small snack for the train, and by the time you come back, your platform will probably be up on the board. Number 2. There's no ticket gate. There's no one checking your tickets as you walk to the platform, and no one stopping you as you board. You can literally walk in, sit down, and the train will leave just like that. Sounds weird, right? But because every reservation is tied to a seat, staff can quickly tell when someone is in the wrong place. Watch the scenery as we head south. You'll see the skyline drop from high-rise apartment blocks to smaller buildings, then to rice fields and mountains. Korea is a relatively small country, but the contrast between Seoul and the rest of the country is huge. So why come all the way down here? Gyeongju is often called a museum without walls, and once you understand the city's history, that nickname makes perfect sense. Gyeongju was the capital of the Silla Kingdom for nearly 1,000 years, from 57 BC to 935 AD to be exact. Every street here is sitting on top of 1,000 years of history. Here's how serious that is. They once found the historical king's memorial still just sitting in the corner of someone's yard. Whenever you see news in Korea that says ancient artifacts discovered during construction work, it's almost always Gyeongju. So a little joke for the real estate investors or developers watching. If you're looking for an investment in Korea, this city is probably not the best answer. Okay, on to the most iconic image of Gyeongju. These massive grass-covered hills you see scattered all over the city center. They're not natural. Every single one of them is an ancient burial mound, and they're about 1500 years old. Across the whole city of Gyeongju, archaeologists have identified around 150 of these tombs. But the main cluster you'll visit is called Daereungwon Tumuli Complex, and it contains 23 tombs, the resting places of Silla kings, queens, and high-ranking nobles. And these are not just piles of dirt. If you look at a cross-section, they're engineered. At the very bottom, the body and the burial goods were placed in a wooden chamber. Over that, they piled thousands of river stones. Then they sealed the entire mound with layers of packed clay, and finally covered it with soil and grass. That stone layer is actually why so many of these tombs have never been looted. The stones would collapse on top of any tomb raider who tried to dig in. It's a 1500-year-old anti-theft system, and it works. Now on every tour I led through this park, someone always asked me the same question: can we sled down the hills in the winter? No. These are protected national treasures, and damaging a UNESCO World Heritage Site is a federal level offense in Korea. Right next to the Tumuli Park is the former site of the Silla Royal Palace called Banwolseong, literally Half Moon Fortress. The name comes from its shape. If you look at the layout from above, the palace ground curves like a crescent moon along the river. Now, after more than 1,000 years, almost none of the original palace buildings are left standing. What you see today is mostly grass, but if you look closely, you can spot the foundation stones, the line of the old fortress wall, and the moat that surrounded it. You're literally walking on top of where Silla kings ruled an empire. And here's a tip. Stand at the top of the palace mound. It's one of the best free vantage points in the entire city. Just south of Banwolseong, there's a stunning wooden covered bridge that crosses the river. This is Woljeonggyo, and historically, it was the bridge that connected the royal palace to the town on the other side of the river. The original was built in 760 during the Unified Silla period, and was eventually lost, most likely destroyed by fire during the Joseon dynasty. For centuries, only the stone foundations remained. Then, after almost 20 years of archaeological research and traditional carpentry work, that bridge was rebuilt and reopened in 2018. Today it's the largest wooden bridge in Korea. The scale of it is what really gets you. The roof, the painted beams, the towering gatehouses on each end. When you walk across, you genuinely feel transported, and it gives you a real sense of how grand the original palace complex must have been 1,000 years ago. Pro tip for the photographers: don't just cross the main bridge. Right next to it, there's a row of stepping stones across the river. Cross on those instead, then turn around and shoot the bridge from the water level. That's the best photo you'll get in Gyeongju, I promise. Now we're walking back toward the center of the historic district, and you'll see this strange bottle-shaped stone tower in the middle of an open field. Quick guessing game. What do you think that was used for? Honestly, in all my experience guiding here, only one person has ever gotten it right on their first try. I've heard everything. A giant oven, an altar, a chimney, a watchtower, you name it. The actual answer is, this is an astronomical observatory. Its name is Cheomseongdae, which literally translates to stargazing platform. It was built in the 7th century and it is recognized as the oldest surviving astronomical observatory in East Asia. It's also Korea's national treasure. Even the design is intentional. The tower is 9.17 meters tall. It's made of exactly 365 stones, one for each day of the year. There are 12 large base stones representing the 12th month, 12 layers above the square window and 12 below. That's 24 layers, possibly representing the 24 solar terms of the traditional calendar. Some scholars even argue that 27 layers of stones above the base represent Queen Hanok, who was the 27th ruler of Silla. Nothing here is accidental, which leads to an obvious question. Why? Why did they build a stone observatory in the 7th century? Two main reasons. One political, one scientific. Reason 1. Legitimacy. This was built during the reign of Queen Hanok, the very first reigning queen in Korean history. In a deeply patriarchal society, her position was politically fragile. But back then, people genuinely believed in shamanism, and the heavens were considered the highest source of authority. The sky decided famines, wars, royal birth, everything. So if a ruler could observe the stars, predict eclipses, and read celestial signs, that ruler was clearly chosen by the heaven itself. Reason 2. Agriculture. Silla society was farming based, and farming ran on the lunar calendar. If you got the calendar wrong, you planted at the wrong time, and people starved. Astronomers here observed the moon, the stars, and seasonal changes to keep the calendar precisely calibrated. A more accurate calendar meant more reliable harvest, and more reliable harvest meant a stable kingdom. So this isn't just a pile of stones. This is a 7th century fusion of politics, religion, and science, still standing 1400 years later. A short walk from the observatory brings you to what I think is the single most beautiful spot in Gyeongju, Donggung Palace and Wolji Pond. This was the royal banquet garden, built in 674 on the orders of King Munmu, the king who finally united the Korean peninsula under Silla. The complex had multiple open-air pavilions, several halls, and a beautifully designed man-made pond with 3 small islands in the middle. The whole thing was modeled after Taoist ideas of immortal paradise, 3 islands of eternal life floating in a sacred sea. This is where Silla kings welcomed foreign envoys from Tang China, Japan, and Central Asia. They throw lavish parties to flex Silla's wealth, art, and architecture. We actually know this in detail because when they drained and excavated the pond in the 1970s, they pulled out more than 30,000 artifacts. It was basically a 1300-year-old time capsule of royal nightlife. Today the best time to visit is in the evening. just after sunset. They light up the pavilions, and the reflection on the still water is honestly worth the trip to Gyeongju by itself. Day 2. We're heading a little outside of the city center, up the slopes of Mount Toamsan, to see one more UNESCO World Heritage Site, Bulguksa Temple and Seokguram Grotto. Construction on both started in the year 751, under a minister named Kim Dae-sung. The legend says Kim Dae-sung built Bulguksa for his parents in this life, and Seokguram for his parents from his past life. Whether you believe the legend or not, the result is two of the most important Buddhist sites in all of East Asia. Bulguksa means Temple of the Buddha land, and the entire complex is built on raised stone terraces with elegant wooden halls connected by stone bridges. Look out for the two stone pagodas in the main courtyard, Tabotap and Seokgatap. They're both more than 1200 years old, both Korean national treasures, and one of the pagodas is printed on the back of the Korean 10-won coin. So if you've ever had a coin from Korea in your pocket, you've already seen Bulguksa. From Bulguksa, you can either hike up the mountain or take a bus to Seokguram Grotto. Inside this artificial stone cave sits one of the masterpieces of world Buddhist art, a single granite statue of Buddha, 3.5 meters tall, looking out toward the East Sea. It was carved over 20 years by hand, completed around 774. And the geometry of the chamber is so precise that scholars still debate exactly how they did it without modern tools. Now when you visit, you'll see that Buddha through a glass window, and photography and video are not allowed inside. That isn't just to keep the space respectful for people meditating. The bigger reason is preservation. The breath, body heat, and humidity from visitors slowly damages the 1200-year-old granite. So the glass and the no photo rule are both there to protect the statue for the next 1000 years. Just stand there, look at it, and absorb the moment. Back in the city, if you want a more casual, modern vibe, Hwangnidan-gil is a Hanok-themed street that runs right alongside the historic Tumuli area. Traditional Korean wooden houses converted into trendy cafes, boutique shops, dessert spots, and street food stalls. You'll see a lot of visitors here in rented hanbok, which makes the photos look incredible against the tiled roofs and the burial mounds in the background. By the way, hanbok you rent in Seoul are from the Joseon time, and in Gyeongju are from Silla time. They do look different. Don't just stick to the main road. Some of the best little spots are tucked into the side alleys branching off from it, so take time to wander. Honest warning though, Hwangnidan-gil has a reputation among Koreans for being a bit of a tourist trap. Prices can be high and the quality can be hit or miss. So to help with that, I've put together a custom neighbor map bookmark collection with my own picks. Link in the description. Just like my Seoul lists, it includes restaurants, cafes, and places to visit together, so make sure to double check where you're heading. And that's Gyeongju. If you're only doing Seoul on your Korea trip, you're missing a huge part of what this country actually is. Gyeongju gives you the depth and the silence that Seoul, with all its energy, simply cannot. If this video helped you plan your trip, or at least gave you a new reason to come, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which spot here you'd visit first. And if you want my exact neighbor map for Gyeongju, it's linked below. That's it for today. I'm Jun from Gamja in Seoul, and I'll see you in the next video.